And yeah, um, so thank you so much for you guys joining. Like I said before, I'm super excited to get in bloom. This is where we're going to be focusing on like our well-being as women and actually stepping into our beauty, understanding the cycles that we go through, why we feel like how we feel, and things of that nature. Just so that it is literally easier for us to make decisions. It's easier for to give ourselves some grace. Um, and it's easier to go through life in general. Sorry, I'm adjusting the zoom. Without us feeling like overstimulated or overstressed all the time, or like we're doing too much, because sometimes that's what people say, but really it's just because our hormones are everywhere and we just need to bring ourselves back together. So we're going to be talking about the menstrual cycle, and it's not going to be a super long lesson. Next month, speak on the sleep cycle, and you can see how your menstrual cycle does affect your sleep schedule, and then how that affects your skin. And they all pretty much work together, because the Lord is so good, and He just puts all your body together to be able to help and support one another. So yeah, let's get into it. Um, mm, mm, mm. I want to be able to just let people into the Zoom without me having to, yeah, so they can just join. I think that'll help. Done. Okay, hope that helps. All right. So, like I said, this series is Beauty and Bloom, and it's about womb wellness. So, you guys can experience peace in every season. And these are a couple of truths that I want you guys to like really focus on is that first, like you guys are not broken, you're just unaware of what's going on with your body. I feel like there's many times where we don't understand what's going on with our body, and then we feel like we are broken or we're not enough, or just things are just not correct, but that's not true. We just don't understand what's going on with our body, and that's why we're having those emotional breakdowns. Another truth is that avoiding your natural rhythm, it's not ambitious, it's destructive. So what that means is that us trying to do things how men do things on a 24-hour cycle is actually not beneficial for us at all. It can actually be detrimental to our cycle and our body because our body runs on a 28-day cycle. It also depends on your age and everything, but typically on average is 28 days. And so we need to be working with ourselves week by week, giving ourselves different type of foods as the week goes on, exercising a little bit differently during the week, just showing up for ourselves differently so that we're actually in a rhythm with our natural body instead of like fighting against it and trying to do everything the exact same way when we are not designed nor created to do that. Because that leads to burnout, that leads to stress, that leads to your body being in survival mode. And then you can end up being more sick or getting sick or just things that are just not necessary if we were just able to slow down and understand what our body needed in that phase of our life and then give the body the nutrients and the things that it needed. And then truth is that birth control and hormone shots aren't the answer. Discipline and self-awareness is. So this is mainly for people practicing abstinence or looking to get pregnant. Like it is so important for you to understand your menstrual cycle when you are trying to be more disciplined or you're just moving off of birth control. It's important for you to understand and be aware of what your body is telling you, what your body is doing, so that you are able to make those connections and really like plan out um and really plan out your next pregnancy. So why womb wellness? Like why is this something that a skin specialist is talking about, right? So learning how your cycle affects your daily life will help you to show up for yourself even better. And then you'll be able to live with more peace and then supporting your goals as you navigate through your emotional, mental, and I put emotional twice. Emotional, mental, and physical journey. So it's super important, like I say, to stay connected with your body, understand how you're moving so you can give yourself more grace and you can actually enjoy everything. Um, so I want to say thank you for joining for those who are joining because there's a few people in the other chat that are having some trouble, but it's okay. So first we're going to talk about hormone health. Some of us don't know much when it comes to like estrogen or progesterone, and those are the two main hormones that your ovaries actually create. I feel like people talk about estrogen extremely negatively because it tends to be the hormone that does help us to gain some weight, but it's actually super important for our body. It increases our bone density, it protects our heart, and it does influence our mood and our memory. So it's important for your brain, and it is important for your heart and your bones, right? So progesterone is actually it makes sure that the estrogen doesn't end up growing too much because that can lead to things like breast cancer. But progesterone also maintains bone density. It actually helps to calm your nerves and then promotes sleep and your immune system. So if you already kind of like notice like whenever that time of the month comes around, your mood might be like swinging and it goes really like out of nowhere. And that's because your, sorry, I skipped a slide, but that's because your estrogen begins to drop and your progesterone drops. And so your energy actually goes down as well. So your estrogen actually makes you happier and more energized and ready to go. And when you're on your period, you actually feel like you have even less energy. So I'm gonna go through the cycles real quick. The cycle of your menstrual cycle. So it's your menstrual phase, and then your follicular phase, your ovulation phase, and your luteal phase. Your menstrual phase, like I said before, this is when your estrogen has dropped, estrogen and progesterone has dropped, and you have really low energy. So for me, this is something that I would consider like your winter season. This is when you need to be doing more calmer exercises like stretches or light brisk walks. This is when your body enjoys high iron foods since you're losing a lot of blood, as well as foods that are filled with more magnesium and potassium to help you to sleep since your progesterone has also dropped. So, if you ever feel like you are extremely tired on your period, but you're having trouble actually sleeping, like you keep like tossing and turning and stuff, then you guys can just try to eat a banana. If you like bananas, cool. I don't really like bananas, but it does tend to help to actually help me to sleep and to rest better. Like I said, doing the stretches as well helps a lot. So for this time, what your day-to-day life might look like for this week is actually giving yourself more rest. So after you go to your job, if you work a 9 to 5, try to see if you can come home and do things a lot lighter. If you have kids, try to see if you can plan out the meals, like meal prep a little bit ahead of time so that maybe you have 2 or 3 days where you're not actually cooking anything new, you can just warm it up and give it to them. And then give yourself some grace, like allow them to maybe have some TV time or do like activities where they're more on their own and you can just take a deep breath and relax. Music is also very helpful during this time. You don't want to add more stress during you don't want to add more stress during this phase. You just want to work with yourself and your low energy and give yourself the peace and the rest that your body is asking for. Because if you try to overdo it, to push yourself, then what's going to end up happening is that you're going to, like, this is when the negative thoughts begin to come in. This is also when, like, PMS starts to happen and you're like getting angry with everyone. This is also like when you increase your stress, then your cramping will also get worse as well, because increased stress, when your body is in fight or flight mode, it actually tenses up your muscles and causes them to, essentially it's going to cause more contractions in your uterus and in your back and everywhere. It's going to feel a lot more tight than if you were to just take a deep breath and actually relax. Then your period would not be as painful as when you're stressed out trying to do everything like regular. So then you have the next phase, which is the follicular phase, which is typically like right after your period, and typically it's about a week, right? This is when your estrogen levels begin to rise. So you begin to see that you have more energy, you're a little bit more positive, and this is the spring season. So you really can just like enjoy life. You feel a little bit more rejuvenated, and you're going through everything that you need to do, and it feels like a normal day, right? This is the time where it's really good to like be intentional with your work and really just use that extra burst of energy to get anything settled or done that maybe you didn't get done the week before, but also preparing for the following week, which the third week is typically around your ovulation time. This is summer, so exciting. So, summertime, this is when your estrogen has peaked and also your testosterone has increased. I don't talk about testosterone too much in this workshop, but the one good thing about testosterone is that if you're looking to build muscle or lose weight, this is the time where you're going to be able to go to the gym and really push out all your reps and really like just move stronger and lift heavier, because you're going to have the strength and energy to be able to do it. This is also the time where you're more in the mood. So if you're practicing abstinence or not trying to do anything, be very careful who you're hanging around and who you're near, and use that passion to fuel your purpose. So what do I mean by that is that if you have a business or something that God has been calling you to work on, this is the time for you to really like hone in on and get everything like squared away, like begin to take your notes of what God has told you to do, begin to pack orders if you need to pack orders, or prepare yourself even better, because you're going to have the energy and the strength to get it done now. So it's the best time to just push it out and keep going. So of course, after spring, after summer, we go into fall, which is your luteal phase. This is when estrogen begins to drop and progesterone increases. This is when your energy begins to decrease, because like we learned before, the progesterone actually helps to make you calm. It helps to make you sleepy. So if you're feeling more tired around this time, that's why. And again, the way that we want to work with our body when it goes through this phase is actually pay attention to how we're able to focus. Because even though we're more calm, we're not calm in the sense that is lazy or like we're sleeping the entire time, but we actually will have a more narrow perspective on everything that we're doing. So this is the perfect time to just focus on one or two things and get that stuff done. Um, because you're just gonna notice that you have like a lot more focus to actually get it done. So before, you may have had a lot of energy, but like things were like scattered and maybe a little bit not as organized. But now in this phase, if there's anything like real tedious task, this is when you want to really get those things done because you're going to have the actual focus to be able to do it. And these are like a couple of reflection questions for you guys. I know like this was really short. I didn't want to do the long one, but I guess I could have done it longer. But do you like feel like that you understand your body a little bit more? You guys can also type in the comments if you want. Do you feel like you understand your body anymore? And then do you feel empowered to make better decisions as you go through your menstrual cycle? So this is for my Zoom. Oh, let me stop sharing. This is for the people on Zoom and for the people who are on what's gonna call it? If you can hear me. And then the last thing that I'm gonna leave you guys with is actually like super, super simple, but it's just the connection between your menstrual cycle changes and your skin. Oh yeah. Your menstrual your menstrual cycle changes your skin and changes your sleep patterns. So that's why next month we're going to talk about more about your sleep and we're going to talk about melatonin and things that can help you, like different herbs that can help you with your sleep and things of that nature. But that's it for today. Thank you guys for joining. It'll be more in depth next time. I believe this applies, but there may be further imbalancements when there's other deficiencies. Yeah, so this is just a general overview of your menstrual cycle in general because whenever there's different deficiencies, it changes how long your cycle actually is, as well as your age will change how long your cycle is. But I didn't want to go too in depth with that one, like iron deficiency, magnesium deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, calcium deficiency, and the fact that birth control can actually mess with your calcium and vitamin D intake. So yeah, on the vitamin deficiencies. Yeah, so different birth controls, they will tell you, like if you take Depo-Provera, it'll let you know that it can affect your bone density and make your bones like weaker. So you're only supposed to be taking it for I think like 2 years, and then you're actually supposed to stop and take a break. I don't think most women actually listen to that advice. I don't know if their doctors actually tell them to do that, but different birth controls actually have different hormones, and that's why the first thing I started talking about was the hormones. Since progesterone, it helps to maintain your bone density, but it also goes against estrogen, which actually increases your bone density. And having a birth control like Depo-Provera, or that's mainly progesterone, that means that you're not allowing your bone density to increase because you're having a hormone that is like stopping another hormone from functioning in your body. Yeah. Another thing is like magnesium deficiency. So a lot of women are I think it's like almost 80% of Americans, especially women, are actually magnesium deficient. Um and magnesium, it used to be found in a lot of our food, but since our soil is not as rich as much, it's like a little iffy. But in order for your vitamin D to actually be absorbed in your skin, you need to have a balance of vitamin D and magnesium. So sometimes you'll have medication that will have both of them, but magnesium is actually very rough on your gut. So if you have bad gut health, um like, and by bad gut health I mean that your gut bacteria, your microbiomes in there is not very diverse, maybe because you don't eat a diverse enough diet, or because you have a hormone imbalancement, so then it's messing with your gut. Then if you have bad gut health, then now all of a sudden your body's not going to be able to digest and fully receive the medicine or the vitamins that you're giving it. So a good way to actually get magnesium, I always say, is topically, which you can do through like taking a bath or doing a magnesium spray, and then taking your vitamin D orally, or just going outside if you have sunlight, which around the time right now there's not that much sunlight. So taking a vitamin might actually help, and that can actually regulate your mood better for during the more colder seasons, so that you don't end up feeling like you're depressed. Because sometimes people are not actually depressed, like you don't have like seasonal depression or anything, you just have a hormone imbalancement plus a vitamin deficiency, and you're not doing anything about it. So instead of just sitting and sulking, it's important to understand how your menstrual cycle works, how your hormones fluctuate, and what vitamins can actually help you um, to gain the energy that you actually need to keep going and keep moving. I'm answering questions, so if you guys have any questions about your menstrual cycle or anything, you guys can type them out. But yeah, when choosing a birth control, it's super important to be aware of which hormones they're giving you, and then to not be on them long term, because it does, like, messing with your hormones doesn't just mess with the process of you being able to have kids or not, but it literally affects your entire body, including your brain and your mood, and even how you choose a partner. Because it messes with your brain, it can literally mess with how you choose a partner, because the Lord has put certain systems in place for us to choose partners subconsciously. And when our hormones are disrupted, then we choose partners that don't actually match us, like, biologically, if that makes sense. I'm just waiting for any comments because I don't want to hop. Because last time I almost jumped off when someone was typing. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Uh, Hi.
Hi, hi. Did I just hop off of mute? I didn't mean to.
Yeah, you did.
Um, I hopped in late because I had the kids and their obligations. But
hmm
I'm sure this sounded very insightful, and I do like that you mentioned many times that if someone is diagnosed with depression or they're having anxiety, it many a times has to do with the vitamin deficiency, to which um based depending on what their baseline to which they even started the birth control or whatever intervention was, it only delineates it from repairing. It's like a band-aid. It's never going to heal unless
Exactly.
you manage the gut and build up that healthy microbiome. Um, but and that's really frightening because it's just plaguing so much more of our young girls, like even more. And
Yeah.
then how they promote the IUDs and say it's okay to not have a period, and um, especially with Mirena, or like there was one birth control Seasonique, which it's now manufactured under a different name, where it's every 3 months, and I'm just like, how? And there's providers that are actually promoting this, and like it's okay, and I'm like, how is this possible? And you'll notice that if they've been on it for like 3 or 5 years, and that's when all the emotional symptoms start to escalate, or then they'll develop like PCOS and like acne and like all these other issues.
hmm
That's
Yeah.
yeah. So
It's it's really like you said, it's frightening because they do push it on the young women, but it's also frightening because most of the older women weren't actually taught on how to take care of your body or what the menstrual cycle is. Like, I know a lot of people who only know about just the period, which is just your menstrual phase, and then they know about ovulation because that's the time where you can actually get pregnant. Um, but that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that one thing that I see a lot in the community is just like different communities and people using birth control to gain weight, especially like the shot, the Depo-Provera, I think that's what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of people like they'll definitely stay on birth control. I experienced that as well, y'all. Like I stayed on birth control because I didn't realize that like first I was suggested to get on birth control because I had very bad periods. I was bleeding a lot and I clotted a lot. But then my mom was like, okay, like this is the best course of action because the period pain was really bad and the clotting and all of those things. And I was bleeding so heavy that I would have to wear a tampon and a pad. And so from there, like, it's crazy though because it altered my body in ways that I didn't realize because I think I was probably about 15 when I got on birth control. And from 15 or 16, from like, I would say like 16 to 19, I was on it and I maintained weight much better. But I didn't realize, I guess, like, I never thought about, okay, then at the doctor's office, they don't tell you, like, oh, well, these are going to be the effects of this long term. You know, like, they don't talk about the long term effects or just like how, like, okay, you don't really know your body. Like, you're falling in love with a body that's not really how your body works.
Yep. And I wanted to add to that is that most of the weight gain that ends up coming, sometimes it's because of the medicine actually like increases your estrogen, because estrogen tends to be the one thing that makes you gain weight, and that's why like fathers, um if they're good fathers and they're around the pregnant woman enough, their body will actually begin to decrease testosterone and increase estrogen, preparing them to meet their baby so that they're a little bit more loving. But that's why it seems like the men start gaining weight too. And we're just like, are you guys having the baby or am I? And that's why, because estrogen is kind of estrogen helps you to actually gain weight. So yeah, when you're when you're younger, it seems like when you're younger and you're on the thinner side, then it's like, oh, this birth control is is great because I'm gaining the weight that I want to gain. But like you said, you're falling in love with a body that's not actually yours and not functioning properly because when you skip that tab that's like, oh, these are empty pills, like if you guys take the pills, these are like the empty rows, so if you don't want your period you can just start a new packet. You're actually like stopping your body from taking that break because like your period is like the winter season, right? So imagine that there's no winter in a place where there should be winter. You're not giving your body rest. You're actually freaking your body out and telling it that it's okay to be in, you're almost putting it in fight or flight and saying that this is your normal mode when it's not. And then that's why later on sometimes people, not only do they have trouble, what was I going to say? Not only do they have trouble just regulating like their emotions, but they have trouble regulating everything. Like then it seems like, oh, they can't eat certain foods, it hurts them, they can't sleep, um or they're sleeping too much, like just your whole system, your entire body, because everything is interconnected, gets completely thrown off. And then once you stop having the birth control, since you've been used to it for so long, you don't even know how to function. You also don't understand a lot of this is what a lot of people end up saying, is that they don't like certain thoughts that begin to pop up, they don't know how to navigate because you're not actually used to being yourself or to having um, your emotions move the way that they do, fluctuate the way that they do, because you've been forcing yourself to be in a system you were never created to be in.
So my question to you would be like, how would you undo this? because some girls, like when they see this video, when they see you talking about these things, they're still at a space where they can stop taking it. Like, like we're still pretty young in our early 20s, or, how do you kind of like, what are some things that you can do to kind of get your body to the way that God created it to be?
Well, first, depending on how long you've been on birth control, like it's going to take a while for your body to adjust anyways. So depending on how long you've been on birth control, they normally say like 1 to 2 years of being off of birth control, and that's when your body should kind of like regulate itself, right? It's like detoxing from all that medication you've been giving your body. um but then you have to, as you're going through that time, you have to actually like watch yourself, watch how you're feeling. Like I tell women, in my coaching group when we go through this type of stuff, is to actually track your periods. um what's the app? The Glow app is one, but you can just track it on a piece of paper whenever you have your period. Like even if it's just spotting, maybe just write, okay, spotting, and then 2 days later you actually had your period, because not everyone's period is on this perfect 28-day cycle, right? And the older you are, or if you have kids, or if you do have different like imbalancements, it's going to change. But it's going to change. I'll do a testimony at the end. But as long as you know when your period is, when it started, and you track that, then the next thing to do would actually be to track your discharge. So if your stuff is some like color that is different colors, like reddish or greenish or things like that, please go to the doctor. I am not a doctor. um just disclaimer, I am not a doctor, but definitely if you're having discharge of those type of colors, you need to go to the doctor, because there's some bacteria and stuff that's going on there that's actually not healthy. Your discharge should look somewhere in between like white, cloudy, um to clear. Clear, whenever you see clear, that means you are ovulating. That means that your body is saying this is time to have a baby. Um yeah. So that means that you're ovulating. But yeah, your discharge should be somewhere around like white or cloudy or something like that. It also does depend on the type of food that you eat. So if you notice, if you're eating more fruits and vegetables, um, you may not even have a discharge. Also pay attention to like the texture. If it's really thick, you need a lot more water. You need a lot more fruits and vegetables. Um, if you're eating more meats, you might see that it's thicker than thinner. What's another thing? If it has an odor, or when it comes to odor, most of the time everyone has their natural body smell. But if you smell something that doesn't smell like how it's been smelling before, go to the doctor. Also check what you ate, because if you've been eating seafood like all month or something, it could just be what you ate. But if not, then it could be again that your gut is actually messed up, that you have gut issues, and it's showing up um through your vaginal discharge. So don't ignore those signs, and don't feel like, oh, that's so bad, like I'm doing something bad with my vagina. Like that's not true. It could simply be because like your body is warning you that something that you're eating is causing a trigger inside your body. And so instead of it showing up like acne, like some people, it might just be showing up as odor, discoloration, or whatever within your vagina, and you need to take that. You need to move with that to make sure that you're okay. Um so something like that, though, you would set up your appointment with your OBGYN, but then also if they tell you that everything is fine, but something's not fine, set up your appointment with your actual doctor, and let them know what's going on. And they should be able to like run other tests, because sometimes doctors will try to dismiss you. Don't let them dismiss you. Don't let them trigger you. Um, so yeah. What was the question
Yeah.
again?
No, that was like you just gave me a few different things of like basically you was just saying the question was how do you backtrack the damage of taking birth
Oh
control
yeah, you
on
gotta
your
watch your body.
yeah, and so you saying like to watch your body. But I think you
Mhm.
should share the testimony about like my wound and what happened when when you pray for me, like and the clotting and stuff like that and remember I had that surgery.
Oh, girl, you gotta have to share that testimony because I just prayed for you. So I was gonna share a different. I was gonna share a different testimony. So, oh, also about the blood. So when you're having too much blood, this is if you're a heavy bleeder. If you're a day like your day one is heavy, or you just always been a heavy bleeder. First, you actually want to exercise around your period. Now, I know you might not want to actually get up because you're tired and fatigued, but the more that you're moving your body, the less that your body's going to produce so much blood, and it's going to actually, like, if you do pelvic floor exercises, you can strengthen your pelvic floor so that it can push out any blood that might be like backed up, so you don't have so much clotting. So that's something that can help, again, like if you have like PCOS, like endometriosis, something like that, like, okay. But that's stuff that can help, because if you notice, like, a lot of athletes, when they are like in their prime season, sometimes their periods disappear. um and then the other thing, like herb wise, is that there's this herb called yarrow, which actually helps with bleeding and with your blood flowing more easily. It almost like thins it out without actually being a blood thinner. So that's something that people will drink around their period, which will help everything to flow easier. So again, you're not having so much clotting. You should pay attention also to your clotting, because it's normal to have some, but if you do feel like you're having a lot, or even if you're like, oh, I've been having a lot for such a long time, you really shouldn't be having a lot of blood clotting. And that tends to be a sign that, again, we normalize and we ignore, and we shouldn't, because that means that things are not flowing within your body as well. And if it's not flowing very well within your womb, then your circulation in your actual body, like in your legs, your arms, your face, it's not flowing that well either. um Keeping yourself warm around this time, like, in Chinese medicine, they like make sure that the women have like socks on their feet and like their head covered, and they only have hot stuff. And again, it's just to help that circulation moving, helping your blood moving. That's why we like the hot compresses on our backs. I'm trying to think of anything else that's really good for your womb around this time. I think that's it. Hibiscus tea is actually another one that's actually really good for promoting blood flow and circulation. Like, that's something that you want to focus on if you're having like really uncomfortable um periods where things are not flowing the way that they should. And it's actually like, even though even though it seems like a good idea to wear a tampon in a pad, if you could wear a cup instead. Some people don't like cups, but do you guys know what a cup is? I'm gonna explain it.
Yes.
If you said yes.
No, I've seen them. They've become more popular in the past couple of years, but I've never actually physically I've seen the box, but I don't know what it looks like.
Oh.
Y'all,
um,
please don't wear a tampon in the pad. If you have to do that, please go to the hospital because Talia had to pray over my womb because they ignored me and then I had to get surgery.
yeah. Mm-mm. It, the Lord is so good. He's so good. No matter what's going on with your body, um, the Lord can take care of you. Of course, in His timing and everything. And there's always like lessons and stuff that is learned through that, and it's a testimony. But yeah, so I would say like a cup would be better than wearing a tampon, because sometimes the thing with the tampon is that it is like, some are cotton, some aren't cotton, but some of those microfibers can actually irritate your
Vaginal lining.
yeah, your vaginal lining, and then that can cause not necessarily more bleeding, but it can cause other issues with your body, and you might not even know that you're causing that issue by continuously putting a tampon, instead of just using a pad. And if you can't just use a pad, because obviously then you're going to be filling up real fast, right? um when you have the cup, you just fold, well, most of them you just fold and then pop it in there almost like a tampon, and it'll literally hold everything. And when it does, because you say you have a lot of blood, so if it does start leaking, it'll go into the pad. But that's better, so then when you take it out, there's no microfibers messing with your vaginal lining. There's no extra irritation, unless your skin is irritated to like that plastic or whatever it's made out of. But that's something that sometimes people don't think about. And I'm trying to think of an example. It's almost like when you're washing your face, like you don't need to, like, you can wash your face with your hands and that's good enough because of the friction that's there. You don't need to always wash your face with a washcloth or with like an exfoliant, because eventually it becomes really irritating. And if you're changing your pads out a lot and your tampons out a lot, like just imagine how much you're basically like like scraping at that area when it's already shedding in the first place.
Yeah, I think that's really really good advice. Because those are things changes that I had made in these past like 3 to 4 years. Literally, I started to wear diapers. Let me tell y'all that's like that made me TMI, but I started to wear the pull up type. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
y'all know what I'm talking about, but that those are so comfortable. For me, it I chose those. My mom, she was like, "Hey, like you should try this," and I was like, "Yeah, I definitely should." So I started wearing those, and then just pads. I don't wear tampons anymore, because I totally agree. Like it's just too much friction. That's something that's like if you go swimming,
Yeah.
like rare occasion. Yeah, for sure. Like yes, Shauna, it's super uncomfortable. But yes, and just everything that you said is such good. I'm gonna try to hit the hibiscus because I don't clot anymore after you pray for me. after after the Lord said, okay, it's time for her to be healed. I don't clot anymore, but the hibiscus is like, does that work for just like after you exercise and stuff? Is it good to take that? Like,
You can take hibiscus tea anytime through your menstrual cycle. It's going to actually help just your uterus in general, because they actually tell you that when you're pregnant, like in your second and first and second trimester, not to take it because of the way that it strengthens the uterus, and like it can cause contractions. So it's really good for your womb, just in general. And um this time for my period, I've been drinking it and it's helped with my cramps. So that's very nice. But I usually do yarrow, which yarrow doesn't actually have like a great flavor. To me, it doesn't have much of a flavor at all. But the hibiscus tastes way nicer if you use sugar instead of honey. But if you don't use anything, then that's you. I kind of need a sweetener. Um, but yeah.
Mm, Um, to pick back off of what you said, Marja, am I pronouncing it correctly? Marja?
it's Marge.
Marja, I'm sorry. Yeah, and it was funny in the 90s they used to market the tampons like pearls, remember the tampon pearls, and to try to make it look like it was comfortable or something like that. But I wanted to know if hibiscus is the same thing as sorrel.
Sorrow. I don't think so. I've heard of that, but I, like, off the top of my head, I don't know.
Yeah, and I can never get a clear like answer to that. I both think both of them are delicious. They both have good properties, but yeah, it is very bitter. Hibiscus without anything. You should recommend that you take it, you eat it with sugar as opposed to honey.
Yeah, I feel like to me, I don't think hibiscus is necessarily bitter, but I've had like actual bitters before, like sour soap, like that's just bitter, like
Oh
blackberry
yeah,
is very bitter. Um but the hibiscus taste is like, it's kind of like light in flavor. And yeah, I mean, it's not the worst flower, but it's not that much flavor. So whenever I put it with honey though, it does it doesn't come out, you don't get all the flavoring. It just tastes like, to me, it just tastes like water with a little bit of honey, and I'm like, what tea is this? But when I add the sugar, it actually brings out the flavor profile of the hibiscus, and which I really enjoy.
Yeah, then they must not be the same thing. The sorrel is very, very bitter. So do you find that the hibiscus is mild?
Yeah, it's mild. It's not bitter. I actually really like the flavor of it. It's yarrow that I feel like is a little,
Yarrow, yeah.
yarrow just tastes weird. It's one of those plants that definitely tastes like a plant, but it's very good for blood circulation. Like they actually use that if you were to have like a bruise or something, they'd make a compress and put it around because it helps with blood circulation. So
Mm.
it's very helpful during periods, also like fevers, because it can help to bring the fever down and promote the blood circulation. There's some other ones. I wonder if I can find my notes off the top of my head. For some reason, I can't remember. Red raspberry leaf. That's very popular for helping your womb. Um, that one's just so good. That tastes good. Doesn't matter. Honey, sugar, nothing. I think it tastes good even with nothing. Red raspberry leaf is phenomenal at like healing the womb and just like restoring it.
That's like, I mean, it's one of like old traditions where they'll do the boil bath of different tea leaves after birth to tighten up down there. Everyone does it.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
called like scissor baths.
Scissor bath, is that what they call them?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you could, so in the West, they're called scissor baths. In if you go to like Africa and stuff like that, you might know they are called like yoni steaming, but you have to be careful because sometimes when it comes to, this is kind of another reason why I wanted to do this, but when it comes to your womb, of there can be a lot of witchcraft in it, because when it comes to your womb, like your womb is able to birth an entire human being from basically nothing, right? Like you're storing a whole soul within your body even before the actual person is here. So because of that and how sacred it is, like just being a woman in general, like there's a lot of people who want to take that and manipulate that for their own will and for like distorting stuff. And also, since some women, especially like back then, like you weren't considered, I wouldn't know if I would say like good, but I guess yeah, you weren't considered good in certain cultures unless you had a kid. So there's like a lot of pressure on that. And so people, instead of running to God or just trusting in God's timing, because there's a billion places in the Bible where he's taking someone from barren to birth, but he always watches over us. Um, they go to these like witch doctors and have them actually do things to their womb to mess them up. So, yeah, there can be a lot of occult activities in there. And what the devil loves to do, since he can't create, is actually to pervert things. So something like going ahead and adding like certain herbs because you just did give birth to your child and you can't take a regular bath and you need that area to heal up. So you do like some steam, you allow the herbs to steam that area so that it can actually heal properly. Like they will put curses over those herbs or over
Oh wow.
in like in the area. If you're going to their place to get that type of stuff done, they will have like, how we pray and we ask the Holy Spirit in, they will have already prayed and asked demons to come in. Of course, some of them may not reference it as demons, some of them do, some of them might just be their spirit guides or whatever. But if it's not the Holy Ghost, then it's an unclean spirit. So they will already have brought them access in, and then when you come in, you're coming into agreement with whatever spirit they're working with. And then they will normally, like, the process is just like a ritual. They will normally not just ask you questions to know what herbs to put in, because some can be dangerous depending on, like, if you're taking certain medications or something, right? But they will give you like teas or things to like calm you down, so that when you sit down you have a better experience. But really it's just having you partake in the ritual, so that you're agreeing with whatever they had already agreed with. So it's very important, like, um just to be mindful and aware that while we need to take care of ourselves, we have to be we have to be very vigilant and make sure that the Holy Spirit is leading us, because that is something where I sat with for a while, and I was like, well, I don't want to, after giving birth, I was like, I don't want to participate in witchcraft by doing this, that, and the other. And then, like, this is TMI, but then I was like, okay, but why am I smelling like this? Like, something is not healing, like my stitches, like something is not okay. And I went to the doctors, and of course they're telling me like things are okay, and I'm like, no, like my body is telling me something is not okay. But once they gave me the okay of my stitches were healed, is what they said, then I took a bath. And when you take a bath, water's going to travel in and out regardless, which is why it's also important to be careful, like going into the pools and things of that nature. Just be careful. Um, but water's gonna travel in and out anyways, and then it's cleaning your system. It's helping your skin. It's taking out toxins from the top of your skin. Um, it Baths also help your blood to circulate like all over your body, right? It's doing everything externally. And then the baths that I have, they also include different florals, so you have different benefits, whether you want like anti-aging, hydrating, healing, whatever the case might be. So, but then when I got out of there, like, everything was fine. Like, everything was fine. Like, a whole month went by, there was no odor, there was nothing weird going on. I'm just sitting here like, hmm. So there was something going on that wasn't balanced, but for some reason the doctors couldn't figure it out. But me just taking a simple bath with some magnesium and some good florals and stuff, it was able to rebalance me the way that I needed to be balanced. So yeah, sometimes we don't have to take all the extra medications or the extra things. We just need to like nourish ourselves better and give our bodies whatever it's looking for. But Marjay, you could totally share the testimony now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's funny because before I share the testimony, I'm just thinking about like what are some ways that we can just make this a regular conversation? Because I think that people don't realize that like hemorrhaging. I just saw a story time of a woman who lost her baby because she did a home birth. And long story short, I'm not saying this, but this is what it seemed to be. The midwife wasn't equipped to deliver a soldier dystocia, I think it's called. And so it's these things that happen oftentimes in many communities where it's like just a miseducation of how much God equips us for birthing, like the whole process. Um, and so that kind of gets me into my story time though, y'all, in my testimony. um, for 2 years I had vaginal pain, like I was having this pain and it was super uncomfortable. And I would go to the doctor and they would tell me like, oh, nothing's really going on. We can't find anything. For 2 years. I was going to the doctor like probably like four. There was one month where I went to the doctor 3 times. And then in 2024, I had this same pain, but this time it was like I would say like it was so bad that I couldn't even like lay down. And so my parents had to take me to the hospital. And when they were taking me to the hospital, by the time we got to the hospital, they were like, oh, she needs to have surgery. So, like, this whole time I was complaining to them like something is not right, something is wrong, I'm hurting, and it's something off. And I was clotting. I was clotting like these huge blood clots consistently. And y'all, like when I tell y'all, I could not figure it out. I didn't know I was eating well. My skin was pretty clear. Like I didn't know what it was. And so in January of 2024, I had surgery. And another thing, this is y'all, but I told them to wait for my mom to come back to the hospital because my mom went home to just grab something to eat. And they didn't even wait. So like these doctors, like you just never know. Like always pray and go in with the Holy Spirit because you don't know what they be trying to do. Like you never know. Because I literally remember before they gave me the anesthesia, I was like, "Hey, I want to wait for my mom." And all I knew, I woke up and she was like, "Yeah, you had your surgery." I told them to wait. She was like, "Yeah, they had already took you in when I came." And I was like, "Oh my God!" Like, and so yeah, y'all. Basically, long story short, a few months later, I had the same pain again that got me in the hospital in the first place. And Talia, another friend of ours, and myself, we are all did something called a press in prayer. We started to pray because that August, it had been 8 months later. My scars had healed pretty well. I was like on bed rest for like 3 weeks. And like another thing, the doctor was just like, "Oh, when you feel better, that's when you can start moving." And it's like things like that where it's just like I was just like, okay, well, I feel better after a week or two. I was like, I feel better. But my mom's like, I think you need to like stay laying down. But long story short, y'all, when we did that press in prayer in August, I never had a pain like that since. And that was in August of 2024. So a whole year and 2 months later, I haven't had a pain or a clot or um my periods are super regular. Like they come at the same time. I've been tracking them. I've still struggled with like some vitamin things, but that's something that I've been working on very diligently. And I would say like that prayer was so powerful, you all, because there are certain people that are they literally like the Lord chooses them for certain callings. And, for thank God I have a friend that was chosen for womb wellness, truly, in the Holy Spirit and with Jesus, because I don't know if like literally, y'all, I feel like I literally the Lord, the Holy Spirit was speaking to me and it was an attack. Like the enemy had there was warfare going on in my womb, trying to kill the kids before they even came. Like when I tell y'all, like the next steps that they were talking about was like removing my ovaries, like, and that would have been like I really want children. I want children really, really bad, and I love kids so much. So that really would have been super devastating for me. But thank God, literally.
Bruh. Thank you, Jesus. You didn't have to go through that. And he just gave you healing. And that's so, oh my God, that's so scary. Without your mom?
I'm so sorry you have to go through that. Like, but and this isn't to say like that is so scary because you had gone through it, what you've gone through, for sure. And that's like, and not to undermine your story in any way, shape, or form, but that's like one of many. Like even what was it, Serena Williams, with all the money she had, apparently she was complaining about symptoms of pain or she had extreme shortness of breath and it fell on deaf ears. Like if you don't advocate for yourself, then who knows like what can happen and you're so vulnerable. How long how long did it take for you to finally like regulate? And what was the exact cause of the hemorrhaging? Was it fibroid?
So they actually said that I didn't have endometriosis. They said I didn't have endometriosis or fibroids. My mom was really like trying to advocate for me every time we would go to the hospital. But to be honest, this is a Holy Spirit thing. I believe that the enemy had waged war on my womb. Because that's what I was hearing inside my body. The enemy had waged war on my womb. Nothing can stop, no doctor can stop the enemy from raging war on your womb. That is a God thing. Only the Lord can stop that. And I think that I definitely, we can definitely go deeper into this at the next wound wellness, but the enemy had access because of sexual sin. The enemy had access to wage war. So it's exactly what you said. I am one of many, many, many stories. And if we could be more educated, not just about our womb wellness and our womb health, but about sex in general, we would stop a lot of attacks. There wouldn't be as many attacks because the Lord can only do so much when the enemy has access. That's why it was so important that I'm like saying we did that pressing in prayer. We were closing the doors. We were closing the doors of the access that he had because in August of that month, I also did a group called Pour, and that's when I got delivered from other things. So it was a spiritual battle because the enemy literally, whoever I'm a birth at whatever time, because the Lord is so intentional, the enemy was trying to take them out. And he had access to do it. And so it's just like I'm super passionate about this because sex can truly ruin your destiny.
Oh
It can
yeah.
ruin what the Lord has for you if you allow it. But thank God he had mercy and grace. And thank God that I had my mom and my dad's, like everybody was at the hospital waiting for me to come out of surgery, waiting for me to be okay because I literally was complaining about it for 2 years. And think about it, I was on birth control before that. I had stopped taking birth control because the guy that I was dating at the time was just like, I don't think you should be taking this. Thank God for his discernment. You see, like it was multiple things that played a part in this journey. And ever since then, I have not had a clot or a like I have been when I tell y'all it was so miraculous. Like ever since then, I get a pain, I get regular period cramps on the first day and a little bit on the second day. And then I don't get any more cramps. It's pretty dull though compared to what it used to be. It's really dull. I bleed normally and I don't clot. I still wear like the type of like the like diaper type of pads because it's super nice. It's comfortable and it's like it make my booty look a little nice, you know? No, I'm just I'm just playing, y'all. But yeah, just I feel like one of the bigger things in my testimony is if you have an issue going on that you feel like is TMI, maybe you should ask the Lord to include help. For ask your community, ask the Lord if it's okay to include your community because what would have happened if I didn't have people to press in and pray for me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Marjay, when you had asked the question, like, how can we normalize this type of conversation? It it really comes down to normalizing the fact that women are valuable and that we're sacred and that purity actually matters. And that doesn't just mean like, you being a virgin and stuff, but it's just you not giving people so much access in general because um before you give someone access to your body, you have to give someone access to your ears, meaning that you have to like listen to them and like trust them, and there's certain things that you have to let in even before you give them your body. And until we actually realize like the entire process is a process and we actually have a choice and we don't have to let everyone in just because they say nice things or do nice things, right? We realize that our body is worth so much more than we might give it credit for, and we're not afraid of that. Not being afraid that we that we have power in that way, that we can say yes or no, because for some people that I've met, they actually felt like being a virgin was actually burdensome because of like they felt like the weight of being pure was burdensome, so they wanted to be like everyone else, and just have it be gone. But then once it was gone, they felt empty because, when you give yourself to people who don't actually care about you, it's like, yo, I just opened up the most vulnerable side of myself. And then now like I'm getting nothing. And it breaks you down in such a way that no one should ever be broken down. Right. So until we actually realize that our body is worth so much more. It's so much more valuable, and it's a little bit more intricate than men. And I only say a little bit more because their body goes through the same cycle ours does. That takes a whole month, but theirs does it 24 hours. So if you're ever wondering, like, why are they so tired after they got home after work? Because like for them, that's like the before period state. Like that's like their luteal phase. Like, and at night, that's their menstrual phase. That's why men can just fall asleep so easy with no problem, right? Um, but until we realize, men and women have differences and we acknowledge that and we're okay with that. And then as women, we're okay with understanding that we are valuable and that we should pay more attention to our bodies and actually pour into ourselves instead of constantly being um, picky and like comparing each other and things of that nature. These conversations are going to be harder and more in the distance because most people are going to birth control simply because they don't want to sit down and be aware of their body or accept the fact that their body functions a little bit different than the next person. Like we're trying to force ourselves into boxes we were never meant to be in.
Yeah, that's super good. Like that's super good. I really enjoy talking to you all because that's 100% spot on. It's the honoring the rib and and the where the rib came from. Like it's honoring both and knowing that it's a conversation of equity and not equality. Um,
Yeah, yeah, that's a really, really good point. That was so well said. Equity over quality, and who you're choosing to share yourself with, because I coincidentally what kind of led me to this group. And thank you for sharing your testimony. Uh, I was talking to a cousin of mine who's younger. She's in her 20s and she's kind of doing her 20-year-old thing. And it just seems so casual, like, and in the way that she was expressing some of the things that she was doing. And that was just like the community that she grew up in. Like, I could see where it's a child, like, where you were saying that you feel like, how can we normalize these conversations and make it seem like they don't have to be like obligated to or to have to reach a certain status, like amongst their friends to come to this because they don't realize the magnitude and like soul ties that are associated with people when they enter your body. And that stuff is so real to the extent where I was talking to another cousin older than me, and she mentioned rekindling a flame with a gentleman, and she was in her like late 30s or something like that. And they had such a great time. They'd gone on a date and they ended the night with that. And then we kind of used a lot of discretion, just I don't know who's listening in. And when the next morning everything was fine, they said that they would keep in touch, and she just started crying. She couldn't understand why. She just kept on crying, crying, crying. And then the following day, she had not heard from him. She thought that was rather strange. And she's like, well, what happened? Like, I'm just texting him, he didn't respond. And it turns out, like about 2 days later, a family member of his reached out and he had passed away. He had a massive heart attack. And I was just like, wow, like that is real. Like the spiritual exchange, it's like, 'cause if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not, that's part of the reason why I joined this group. And I really appreciate that it was even set up. That is this, it's a spiritual act. It's like, it's a worship of God. Is that correct?
Yeah, having so the Lord literally created sex as a way for us to be more intimate with our partner. And when you're married and you do that, it literally like fuels both of your guys' passion. It connects you guys both together, and things will begin to move and flow better. That's why I believe it's in the book of Corinthians, and it says that you should not withhold sex from your partner. The only time that you guys should is if you both agree, because you guys are both praying and fasting to be closer to me. So sex is it's like literally like it's so intimate, and it's literally to bind you together. And then that's where, like, when we're doing it outside of covenant, outside of the protection of the Lord, outside of the understanding that this is something to bring us closer to not just one another but also closer to the Lord, right, and to fuel our purpose, then we're literally giving like pieces of ourselves to other people. We are literally binding ourselves to other people. I think it even says, if you know that you are bought with a high price, why would you like bind yourself to a prostitute? So it's so important that we're not doing those things with just anyone. And then when we know better, because like you were saying, some people, some people don't know better, or even if it's like a spur of the moment, you fall for your flesh instead of running away. Like this is why it says with sexual immorality, you flee from it, you run. Like don't even give it time, right? Because sometimes it's not spiritual, sometimes it really is just your flesh, and you can't run out your own body, so you better at least run from that temptation that's coming towards you. But it's so important. Honestly, I lost my train of thought, but something that you had said was like she's in her 20s and just acting like a 20 years old. That type of language actually is something that we have to stop using too, because it shouldn't be normal at all, no matter at what age, that anyone is going around and not only giving themselves away, but also taking from other people, because it's both people are taking, but not in a way where they're giving in a nice exchange, but they're literally pulling people apart. So it's so super, oh, you're so cute. So it's so super important to like even don't even give that excuse. Like there are people in my lives where if they're younger and stuff, I like remind them. I'm only 27. I remind them like you're not missing out on anything. If anything, you're missing out on unpacking all the baggage and trauma that comes with sleeping with someone and then having it not work out. And it's not gonna work out unless you guys are already married. And then even with being married, you have to be with someone who's like really knows God, and God, and you guys have to be willing to continue to do everything together, because love isn't just a feeling. Love is action, and it's a choice, and it's something that you choose every single day. And covenant is with God, and unless you're inside covenant and you guys are both actively making the choice, it's not going to work out, and you're breaking yourself apart continuously. And then even for people who are older, because I know some people who are older and they're kind of like, well, no one will love me or choose me, so I just accept this. And that's still not the mindset, because then that means that you again don't understand your worth. You don't understand your identity in Christ. You don't understand how God actually sees marriage, and how he sees you. Because even before you get married to someone in the natural, you're also the bride of Christ. So you're already his. So whenever you're giving yourself away, you're basically prostituting yourself to someone else.
I was gonna say, I was coming. I was coming. So yes, y'all. I think, uh, is it Shana, or how do you say your name?
Yeah, Shauna's correct. Shauna.
Okay, yes. So like that's something that I've been working on, my language. The power of life and death is in the tongue. So with the power of life and death being in the tongue, that means that when we speak something, we are held accountable as Christian women and men when we know something. So for example, we know that, hold on, y'all, my bad. We know that consummation is what literally, like, when you are married, what solidifies the marriage is consummation. The spiritual yoking of having sex, like that's literally what happens if the yoke becomes one. It is finished. That is the it is finished. And so with that being said, I just be thinking about how God is just such the beginning and the end. And the sex is the end of the beginning of the assignment that you go into with your kingdom spouse, or with your husband or wife, or wife and husband. And so that language that we use, that is such a calling.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, so this is like the language that I use is, if somebody is single, it's not, oh, this is such a calling that being single is not such a calling. No, it's that this is such a calling that you shouldn't be doing these things, and that there's rules to the road, and those are the rules. Those are the things that keep us safe from not being in emotional disarray. Because one of the common things that I see is girls that are having sex outside of wedlock, the emotional dysregulation is at an all-time high. And the reason being is because you are literally allowing demons to come inside of you because God did not. God, get married, even when people get married, um, without they could not have sex and it could just be like, oh, on their own terms outside of God. That God didn't he didn't even approve that. And how I know that is because in the Corinthians it says when I bring two together, not when two humans just decide that they want to come together. It's when he brings two together. So think
Mhm.
about how detrimental it is for you to not be in a marriage or not be have that covering, and then still you're out here and you're having sex with all of these people, or you're not having sex with all of these people. It could just be one person. And if you don't know who you are in Christ, that could be so detrimental to you. What if you have prophetic gifts? What if you have gifts that just by having sex with someone, you may have a mental health issue that's way worse than your counterpart. And that was what I experienced and what I saw. That the counterparts, they were just like, oh, you know, I just had sex with this person. Like, it's not that big of a deal. It was this they were just so disconnected from it. And here I am, I'm like bawling my eyes out. Like, no, like I was so distraught because I felt ashamed. And so this is why it's so important, like reading Tamar and Amnon. That's super important. Hannah, like these stories about how the Lord already shows us what sexual immorality can do to us and how difficult it can be. Because we never hear of Tamar ever again after Amnon sexually abused her. We never hear of her again.
I
So
will say just to add, because I think Shauna, you have something to say. When
Yeah,
it
go ahead.
when it comes to why it feels like women tend to hold more of the sexual shame, like besides the cultural thing, like we have to remember Adam was made first by himself. And then the Lord was like, it's actually not good for you to by yourself. We were never made by ourselves. We were literally made from his rib. So the connection that we have to our partner is way deeper. Now, his connection to us, yeah, super deep because we're literally protecting his heart, right? The rib protects the heart, protects the important vital organs, but also the calling on the men's life. They are to give their life like how Christ gave their life for the church. So, literally to die for us, right? So, both of us have like different functions and everything. But they come together so beautifully. But it's like when we give ourselves, we are literally like giving in both in the natural and spiritually, low key, so much more, because we were created for this bond and now we are perverting the bond that we were created for. On top of that, the womb literally houses, it holds, like that's what the vagina does, it holds, right? Like, so you are internally taking all of that in, and if you're doing stuff like without protection, or they do come in you or whatever that is, some of that DNA lays around inside of you for a while. So on a biological level, you are literally allowing an invader into your space, not just for that second or for that moment or for the orgasm, whatever it is. It's for days after, weeks after, months after. If you have a kid with them, like that DNA is sitting in you, it's affecting you, like you know.
Feel it.
And then the spiritual yoking that comes behind it until you allow God to come in. So it is so much like it is even deep for men, but for men it looks different. It begins to actually mess with, for both of us, it begins to mess with our purpose and our calling. And I feel like more so for women is that we then keep hunting for the next one in the way of we need someone to provide for us. Like it's almost like our brain like wants that connection all the time. But for guys it's more like uh they cannot, they no longer think clearly. Like it's really not about a girl, it's just about like a dopamine rush. and
Yeah.
they're no longer interested in their purpose at all. Like that's what I know. So like a lot of men, like then it becomes, oh, how many bodies can have things like that, versus like the women's side, it's more like we actually want the man as a whole, even though yeah, we're craving the sex because we're horny or whatever, but like we actually want the whole man to be just our man. But for them it's like they need to rush, they need to rush, they need to rush. But either which way, it distracts you from your purpose, and it distracts you from your calling. And it's because it distracts you from your purpose and your calling, messes with your brain, and um you spiritually allow demons to come into your atmosphere and to be able to legally mess with you. It actually messes with your prosperity as well, which is why there's so many there are so many people where you notice when you go inside more poor community, sexual immorality is rampant. Lust is everywhere. And even when they get money, it seems to go out so much faster. And it's because you don't want, a lot of the time, the thought of purity, of holding yourself to a standard, of waiting, um, that's been thrown out the window. And at such a young age, because even like certain communities, like in like second grade and stuff, they talk about stuff, they'll do stuff with each other. I have heard some wild stories, and I'm just like, that's a baby, that's not a child, that's a baby.
Mm.
Like there's no way. And it's, child on child stuff, because the the adults don't want to have the conversation of protecting your body. The adults don't actually protect their body, so the kids don't even see through the actions, um
Part secret.
yeah,
Yeah.
that you're sacred, or to take care of yourself. um yeah, it gets really deep. And it's not to say that people with money, is the one thing I don't want to say is I don't. And there's also this, that's separate, but there's like this weird barrier between people who have money and people who don't have money. A lot of times people who don't have money view people who have money as evil. I don't really understand why, because people are people, and there will always be evil people, and there will always be good people, no matter the finances. But normally people who have money, depending on like how rich you are or whatever, but sometimes your like their eye or their focus is on making more money, unfortunately, because they don't have the Lord, right? But it's focused on that instead of chasing a body, versus people who don't have money, even though they might be focused on making money for to survive, it's actually focused on a body. So it's so important not to let those, because they obviously intertwine, but not to let those get to us in a negative way. We're supposed to seek the kingdom of heaven first, and then the Lord will bring the relationship that helps to, purify us in a good way instead of taking from us. And then of course he brings the multitude when it comes to finances and things of that nature, because he wants his children taken care of, um, on different he wants us taken care of, period. But it's how much we're willing to surrender, how much we're willing to, be pure of thought, be pure of action, things of that nature. Whether you're in your waiting season or you're actually married, but it's like bringing everything to his floor and like truly seeking him. That's where we'll prosper.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. No, I 100% agree with what both of you guys mentioned pertaining to that aspect. I just feel as though my time is running out. I have to take off, but conveying this to that age group, like you're very mature for your age, Saya, which is great. And but to convey, maybe it's I don't articulate myself well, or I'm not so deep rooted in as I should be in my faith. Maybe I should walk in the path of my faith or being more God fearing, to which it would resonate, which I was saying to them. But it's really hard to convey that message to some of the younger population. They're very, and not that I'm just sitting here like running the streets. It's just that they don't have, they, they just feel as though it's like you mentioned, Marjay. I said it correct, Marjay. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's very superficial. Like that interaction amongst them is like, especially with the dating app and whatever the case is, and to help them understand just to the level, the cellular level of DNA being implanted within you, and that changes your temperament, your personality, especially if you have a child with someone, and you want to ensure that like, your your body, your tongue, your mind, that's all currency for who you are as a person. And they just don't understand that. Like I need to be better with like expressing that to them as well. But it's I even mentioned that in like in our conversation. And then sometimes like that resistance is like builds up frustration or it might start to um surface wounds that they don't want to address. Like, 'cause many of that was from maybe how what they witnessed growing up or um what child sexual abuse or whatever the case is, so they choose not to mention any of it because of that. Like it's just too deep. They'd rather just find fun and pleasure in it, but not realize how much of a consequence that could come afterwards.
I totally agree with you. I think that you hit it right on the head. A lot of times I didn't want to talk about sex or anything like with my mom growing up because then we would have to talk about my dad. We would have to talk about how rejected I felt or didn't feel. We would have to talk about my feelings when it came to my dad. So I would just push the conversation away because it's the trauma behind the connection that you have to the people that you care about the most, you know. And it was painful because I didn't want to talk about guys because then I would have to talk about my dad, you know. And I think that it's the tact of how a lot of adults go about it. Like, and what I mean by that is exactly what Talia said in the comment, in the chat box. She said a testimony goes a long way. Vulnerability is the one thing that I don't see a lot of adults. That's not how they start. They don't take the conversation with vulnerability. They take the conversation in fear. And anytime you take the conversation in fear, most of the time, unless you have a child that is just gifted in that way where God gifted them to have that wisdom, you're going to get fear back. And
Yeah.
so vulnerability is just like, for me, I was talking to one of my aunts a few months ago and I told her like, hey, like I was just super honest about what my experience was. And I was just like, hey, like I experienced this, and it hurt my feelings. I was honest about my feelings. I was just vulnerable. And that's kind of what started to change. Like, even like with my mom, like she would be like vulnerable with me. And my mom, I've gotten blessed to have a mom that was always vulnerable. But then she started to adjust her approach to not just be vulnerable as a dump because of her own trauma, but vulnerable as okay, I'm we're in this together. And I think that a lot of people like if I start talking about demons and spirits, you're gonna be like, what the heck? Like, like you're gonna be like, because that's the level that I'm at now. But I wasn't at 17, I wasn't at that level. I would have been looking at you like, look, I'm not even trying to talk about no demons. Because
You know,
innately we know that it's true. We know innately we push away the truth. That is it's something new, and our brains are wired to push away new things. And
yeah,
so it's that thing where if you come to me like, hey, you know what, let's go have a girls' day, or let's do this, and like, okay, I'm not trying to get too. My mom would say this to me. If she want to know something, she'd be like, I'm not trying to get too lovey-dovey on you, but I want to ask you, and it's literally just like being vulnerable. Being vulnerable is the start because a lot of times parents are scared. They're scared. They don't want their daughters to have daughters at a young age or to have sons. And um, also, we're digging on a deeper issue here, and the deeper issue is just a lot of people don't have Jesus, so we
Mhm.
have to stand in the paint. And for me, kindness and vulnerability, no matter who I'm speaking to, opens a lot more hearts than me talking about, the spiritual realm of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely more personable. Like when you posted in the chat about your introduction, that was really moving. Yeah, for all of
Thank
you.
you.
I really appreciate this conversation. And I hope to be able to participate in more. And, thanks again, guys.
You're welcome. I hope you guys all have a great night. It went a little bit longer than I thought, but God bless you guys. Next Thursday, right, Marjay? That's yours, or
Yeah,
Wednesday?
next Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we'll talk a little bit
excited.
on more on this, less about the womb and more about,
The
prosperity
root.
when it comes to shame and the results of it and how to get prosperous when you are struggling with sexual sin or sexual shame, or if you've been sexually abused or any shame.
And how to create a safe space for the person and how to be vulnerable enough for the person to feel like what you have to offer them as advice resonates with them and it's not like critical or yeah, definitely solid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We're definitely gonna hit on a little bit on this. So I will see y'all later.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good week, guys. Thank you.
You're welcome.